Hi everyone, my name is Dylan Giannakopoulos and I'm a landscape, travel and commercial photographer from Melbourne, Australia. I'm also a Sony digital imaging advocate, Haida co-photographer and a regular writer for Australian Photography magazine. What motivated me to start pursuing photography sort of really stems back to my childhood. I was super fortunate to grow up in a family that loved to travel around the world, and there was a few times I didn't have my mum's point and shoot camera or a disposable camera with me. I think it was that documenting all those different landscape locations I was visiting that sort of, drove that passion for photography. And I guess that sort of just continued on as I went through my teenage years. And sort of 27 years later, here we are now. I'd say I get my inspiration from the location or the subject I'm shooting. So I have a bit of a mantra that I like to say to myself, particularly when I'm a bit of a creative rut, and that's to shoot everything and anything that excites me. So I do primarily shoot, like I said, landscapes and cityscape photography, but I also like to delve into a bit of wildlife, portraiture and street photography as well. So for me, it's about identifying what is it about that subject that gets me excited. Is it patterns in the rocks? Is it the texture? Is it the sky? What is it about that scene that really gets me excited? And through that's where I get a lot of that inspiration from. And, I'm composing my image to sort of highlight that and communicate that through my photography. As for what photographers have really had a major influence on me, hands down, I'd have to say my biggest influence has been Elia Liccardi. His work is nothing short of incredible. And from both the post-processing to in-camera techniques, just amazing work. I am somebody who does like to do a fair bit of planning and preparation prior to shoot. This does, of course, vary based on where and what it is I'm shooting. So obviously an international location, I will give a significant amount of time versus something locally where I can shoot it every day. I'm not going to quite spend as much time on that. But this is a staple of all my workshops that I teach, and I call it planning for success. And I say it for a reason, because usually the best moments in photography are fleeting. That amazing point in the sunset when you get that fiery sky, it only lasts for a couple of minutes. And if your camera isn't set up, composed and ready to go when that magic happens, you're going to miss it. And I'm speaking from experience here so that you guys don't need to miss it. So be prepared, get there early, and just take the time and effort just to plan it out. It doesn't have to be anything overly complicated. It can be as simple as understanding you're wanting to shoot that golden hour, so I'm going to get to that location, well before it. And if it's a spot you haven't scouted before, I'm going to get there even earlier, just to allow myself time. For me, when I get to a place and I'm rushed, I'm flustered, and it inhibits my creative process. Whereas when I've got time, I'm relaxed and I have the opportunity to really try different things, get creative and find my composition and get that locked in. If I was to pick a particular image from my portfolio that I would say was really special to me, it'd have to be the one I took of Central Park from the helicopter. I spent so much time and effort planning this shoot. It was an incredible experience, not only to be able to shoot in a doors-off helicopter, but New York and Central Park in particular is a spot I hold quite close to my heart. It's where I proposed to my wife, and to be able to photograph it on our honeymoon from up above was pretty special. What I really like about the image is, for me, Central Park's quite a fascinating spot. For most people, I think that especially those that haven't been to New York, they don't really understand the grandeur and just how big this place actually is. And it's just the way that it's perfectly framed by, the upper east and west side. You've got this juxtaposition between this nature and the concrete jungle that surrounds it. We've got the epitome of wealth on one end and also really poor neighborhoods on the other. There's all these contrasting points, but they're all connected by this park. It's this one little sort of refuge that's left and protected within this town. For me, it was really important that I shot it early in the golden hour. So what I wanted was that golden light to cast across the buildings, but I wanted it to still be high, the sun to be high enough off the horizon that it was going to cast some shadow. So by casting that shadow, what we would have is some buildings would be totally in black from the taller buildings, but the ones that are tall are going to be really chiseled out by that golden light. So it's going to help shape some of that buildings, add some three-dimensionality to it, and just really chisel out those building edges. So for me, it's a really special photo for numerous reasons, and got really lucky with that golden color in the sky. So there's a couple of reasons why I really love shooting with Haida filters and chose them over any other brand, but the primary one is ease of use. So I used to use another brand of filters and they were so frustrating to put on your camera. They took so long. I can't tell you how many countless times I dropped it. You never knew whether or not, I used a screw to attach to the ring adapter which went on the lens, and you just never knew whether or not you were over screwing it or it wasn't on properly. It was a very nerve-wracking experience, and more often than not I would leave the filters at home and I just found I was getting very little use out of them. And then I came across the M10 filter system when I was doing a review for Australian Photography magazine. I was pretty skeptical, to be honest. I wasn't sure whether this redesigned approach to filter systems was actually going to be practical or work, but I've been totally blown away with it. You know, when we talk about ease of use, so this adapter ring is what screws onto the lens, and the way you attach the filter holder onto it is just with this pin. So it's really easy to use with gloves on. It's locked in, it's nice and secure. We've got the drop-in filter system, which basically allows me to change filters in a matter of seconds, very quickly, very easy. It is super light, these things. But a filter kit and a holder system is only good as the filters that the company makes. And thankfully the red diamond filters that they have for these are just spot on. They're so good. I have dropped these onto rocks before and not even a scratch. Something you kind of got to see to believe. I wouldn't recommend testing it out, but take my word for it. I've dropped it onto a reef before. It didn't break. It didn't even scratch. So absolute miracle. But more importantly, virtually no color cast on it. Even on those 10 stop and really high density filters, you just get great results all the time. So many reasons why I love these filters, but it comes down to ease of use for me. And if you can't use those accessories on your camera day in and day out reliably, and they're just going to take away from that creative experience. So love my Haida filter products, and I've never looked back since. This right here is my go-to Haida filter combo. I've got the M10 filter holder system, which fits all my lenses from my 16 to 35 right up until my 70 to 200. At the front, I have the 100mm red diamond 6-stop filter, and then on the back is this really cool and unique filter. It is a CPL plus 3-stop ND filter. So what this does is it gives me 9 stops of neutral density. So it's really great for getting that sort of 30-second to 2-minute exposure. And at the beginning of sunset, that's fantastic. It's 9 stops is about what you need, 9 to 10. But as the sun begins to set, we're obviously going to lose a lot more light, and that exposure is going to really start to drag out to 10 minutes and beyond. So the easy way to fix this is I can just simply remove this combination CPL plus ND and slot in another CPL that's just offering no other neutral density. So within a couple of seconds, with absolute minimal disturbance to the camera, I've gone from 9 stops to 6 stops. And it's really handy for someone like me who does a lot of exposure and time blending, where it's really important I don't touch or disturb the camera from basically when I start shooting to when I pack up. So this pretty much solves a problem that I didn't really know how to do. Before this, I was always very carefully trying to just lift this off the camera and then, slide out the 100mm filter for another one, because there's no way you could remove and swap these out on the camera without it moving to a degree. So it's really saved me in the post-processing stage, having to do a lot of transforming and like slight adjustments just to make everything light up again. So it's my go-to setup. Apart from this, I do tend to use the soft grad filter 2-stop. I find that's got some good use case because that's soft gradation. I'm not a big fan of hard graduated filters as much, but that does come out from time to time. But more often than not, this is the go-to for me. My one tip for landscape and cityscape photographers would be to experiment with your focal lengths. Don't just default to the 16 to 35mm all the time. Try shooting at something more telephoto like 85 all the way up until 200mm. This narrow focal length is not only going to enable you to compress your scene more, but it's also going to enable you to focus your viewer's attention on maybe that part of that scene that really caught your eye, that part that you're trying to communicate. You can also eliminate a lot of distracting objects by shooting more telephoto. So if the scene's really busy, there's a lot going on, shooting narrow with that telephoto focal length can really help clean up the scene and simplify your composition.